Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Paranormal NL Podcast on Spotify, Season 2. I'm your host, Jen. Paranormal NL Podcast is a place where the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, and anywhere else in the world can share their paranormal experiences. Paranormal NL believes in supporting local Newfoundland Labrador culture, people, places, and things, again, to promote paranormal tourism and paranormal networking all over the world. A big thank you again to all the alumni guests from season 1 and 2, and of course, our fans. We want to hear your stories. If you have any paranormal, supernatural, unexplained, ghosts, cryptid creatures, folklore, natural heritage, ancient history, military hauntings, haunted antiques, Vikings, pirates, adventures, music, cultural indigenous topics, urban legends, books, paranormal digital art, sci-fi, cosplay, markets, UFO, CE5, alien technology, Wicca, psychic medium experience, Tara, metaphysical, vampires, pagan stuff, or just tales of the weird you'd like to share as a guest on my Paranormal NL podcast, please reach out to me on Facebook Messenger, JV Noseworthy, or email me at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com. After your episode, you'll become part of the Paranormal NL Alumni Network. Now remember, folks, you always have the option to share your stories or any ghost tip information anonymously. And don't forget, you can also watch and listen with your smart TV for free on the Spotify app. Make sure you click on the Spotify bell so you get automatic updates of new episodes. Have fun and participate in the Spotify polls and the question and answer comments with each new episode. Don't forget, head on over to Facebook. Join the Paranormal NL podcast group. We'd love to see you on there. Now, you can also find Paranormal NL on Instagram and TeePublic for merch. But let's get on with the show. Tonight, I have on the line with me, coming in hot from Texas, United States, Michael Kopf. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, and wow, I gotta say, I'm impressed listening to that intro going, man, I could talk about that, and man, I can't believe all the topics you talk about.
Yeah, I like to talk about it all, Michael, and, I got your, let's see, I'm pulling up your website here, and it's Michael Kopf, Paranormal Investigator, and Podcaster.com. So you've got a lot of different stuff that you do. Tell me about it.
So I grew up kind of in the metaphysical world, and I always thought, okay, so this is all spiritual, metaphysical experiences I'm having. Then I find out years later, no, it was paranormal. And it's actually is paranormal stuff. And so I was like, oh, so I grew up in the paranormal world. And I had my first paranormal experience when I was 2. And I did not realize people actually investigated the paranormal. I thought that was just a TV gimmick kind of thing or TV show. And I was like, yep, that'll never be me. And then I joined a Facebook group, Ghost Ship Hunters, and we talk about the paranormal, and a paranormal team out of Texas messaged me and said, do you want to join our team? And I was like, you mean this is real? People actually go out and investigate the paranormal? And they were like, yeah, and I got hooked.
Yeah, I love your logo. That kind of looks like the tall ship with who you joined first, the Ghost Ship Hunters.
Yes, I had a friend create that for me. He's a fellow investigator, and he was like, I was talking to him about starting up some stuff and starting a channel on YouTube, and he's like, do you have a logo? I was like, no. He goes, send me some ideas of what you like, and I'll make you one. And so I was fortunate to have friends that are really good with tech that I was able to utilize their services and get some really cool logos and really cool connections.
Yeah, Robert Dumont made our logo, and I had him on. I think it was in season 1, episode 28. And I've had other people on since then, and they kind of stepped forward and gave me some logos, and you can find all those on TeePublic. But tell me more now. I think I read somewhere in your bio. I had a question for you. You said you wrote 2 sermons to protect yourself when you do Reiki work.
So, doing Reiki work, a lot of people view it and they see people, and some people put their hands over someone to transfer the energy from the universe to the person, and sometimes you just get guided to, if it's on like the back, you may put your hand on the low back or the mid back. And in the society we live in, I was told by someone, when you get your Reiki license, you might want to really consider getting a reverence license, because it'll protect you from anybody coming after you for false reasons, or falsely accusing you of something. It's to protect you in the world we live in. And so I was like, I don't think I'll ever need it, but I think you're right. So I signed up for a 2.5-year study in, I think they called it non-denominational studies. And we would meet, I believe it was weekly, and we would have assignments. And at the end, to graduate, we had to write 2 sermons. And so I wrote my 2 sermons and got my license. And then I was doing the Reiki work, and I kind of stepped away from the Reiki to do more of the paranormal, but I find it still helps. So I was glad I got it.
Yeah, I had somebody on the show not too long ago, Dr. Judd Burton from South Texas, who studies biblical anthropology and things like that, and he has a similar type of thing that he teaches online because he's a professor, and also within along those lines. So yeah, I mean, it all kind of goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
It is, and it's one of those things where you feel like you shouldn't need, but you're glad you have.
Yeah, because you had mentioned something about having a hex removed from you when you saw one of the top. What's a cowser? Cowser. I'm not familiar with that term.
That's a dowser,
Oh,
and they
D.
use
Okay,
dowsing
that's my
rods.
printer. Made it look like a C. Make no wonder I didn't know what it was.
I was thinking for a second,
I think
yeah,
I
what
need
is a
some new
cowser?
printer ink, Michael.
But so what it was is, growing up, we've always were like, family would come and go, people would come and go, and we always would be feeling like something feels off. Something's just not right. And my parents, doing the circuit of going in, listening to lectures on esoterics and some spiritual topics, they met with Raymond Grace, who is a world-renowned dowser, and he was like, heard our story, and he's like, well, let me come over and see what's going on. And found out, yes, we did have a hex on us. And he was like, in his words, from what I remember, it was like, this is the second or third worst case of a hex I've ever seen, and it came from a family member. And so we were like, yep, we know who. Yep, we're all prepared. And he's like, he spent like probably an hour removing the hex. and taught us how to remove it and protect ourselves. And while doing that, he was on a break and pulled me aside, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I can feel the energy here." And he goes, "You can feel portals?" I said, "Oh, is that what you call it?" He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I just went like this and the energy and ramped up and moving my hand a certain way, and then I'd move." Then he goes, "Well, if you move it this way, then you'll close it." And I was like, "Oh, you're supposed to close them?" And he goes, "Well, it's nice if you're not at your own house to close it after you're done." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like surprised I could open portals.
Wow.
And so he was like, kind of taught us a few things, and we learned how to use pendulums to remove things from us and to send it back to source. And so we were blessed to meet some of the people we met, and we've have a lot of great friends that look out for us and support us. So we've been blessed in that area.
That's great that you have a lot of people to lean on and help teach you how to do stuff like that. And I was reading some more of your bio, and I was interested in Egypt. Tell me more about Egypt.
So Egypt, I went on I guess what I would call now a river cruise, and we flew into Egypt from the UK through the US. And when we got there, we all were staying at one compound, so we all met at the compound. And so when I say compound, I mean, yes, it was gated, there was armed security there, but it was really nice on the inside. There was like no presence of military or police inside where we were, and we were free to come and go. We just had to let people know where we were going, and depending on where we were going, they would send a guard with us, or we could travel on our own. And so our rooms, it was really cool, as we would go in the courtyard and we could look to the one side of the compound, and there were the pyramids right there. It's like we were sleeping at the base of the pyramids almost.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, man, I'm definitely in Egypt now. I was like, there they are. And I always found it interesting when you look at the photos of like the pyramids and the Sphinx. They make it look like the Sphinx is alone in the desert, the pyramids are alone in the desert. But in actuality, the Sphinx is right at the base of the pyramids. I was like, I never realized these were so close.
Yeah,
You could walk from one to the other.
that's definitely on my bucket list. But what was the Sphinx like?
The Sphinx was really cool. Is we got to walk up, and we could I have a photo share sometimes where I am leaning against the Sphinx with my arms stretched out to both sides, and I'm like, yes, I am actually leaning on the Great Sphinx.
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
I am touching the Great Sphinx.
I remember as a kid reading about, ancient Egypt and all that stuff in the Encyclopedia Britannical, when you're doing your studies as a kid. But I was always interested in Egypt and places like that for sure. You've had a lot of different
Right.
experiences, Michael. I also see in your bio you've had some near-death experiences, 3 to be exact. I don't know if you want to share anything about those or just mention them and move on.
Well, my experiences are not like some of my guests on my shows where they give the details and, share from point A to point B. Mine was I would start to feel really off, and it's like I would start to feel like it could be summer, and I would feel like I was in a freezer. Like I could feel ice growing on my bones. I was so cold. And all of a sudden I would be walking, and next thing I know, hours have passed or minutes have passed, and I come to, and I'm like, okay, I feel very different now. What just happened? And excuse me. On one of them, I was feeling so dizzy. I was like, okay, I gotta go lay down. And I had myself wrapped in, I think, 2 blankets, still feeling cold. And my bed at the time was a real wood bed frame. So you can imagine, how those bedposts, how heavy they are and how comfortable they would be to hit. Well, my chin hit one of the posts as I passed out onto the floor. And next thing I know, it's like an hour later, and I come to, and I'm like, why am I wrapped in blankets? And to save the audience some of the disgusting factor is, I went into the bathroom, and for the first time, it's like, you know how they say when tissue regenerates, it ejects the old tissue out? I experienced that. And how I know it was a near-death experience to me was I started noticing my thoughts were different. I was putting together, like, people would ask a question, and I was like, oh, that's this, this, and this. And I was like, I've never studied this. I don't know how I know this, but I started being in touch with information I had never known before. And so I was like, I must have had a near-death experience because the brain is different. So something had to happen to alter what's going on.
I've heard a lot of people mention those different things when they go through something like that, where they know increased knowledge of different things that they've never known before.
Right. And I mean, the missing time, I mean, I could chalk that up to a paranormal experience, but it was just, yeah, everything put together. I was like, man, this is not normal. There's something happened. And so, yeah, and then I'd start hearing people talking about near-death experiences, and I was like, I had that. I can relate to that. I had a near-death experience.
You've had done a lot of work. I see you've investigated a lot of different places like hospitals and asylums and historic homes. Tell me about the abandoned military bases. Anything cool go on there?
So, Fort Walters and Mineral Wells is the military base that it's kind of like a second home for me. And I've done probably double-digit investigations there if I was to count them all up. But it's interesting because every time I go there, there'll be something different. And sometimes the same. And what I mean by that is I have gone there and had soldiers interact with like cat balls. We were playing taps. They would light up one on a tile floor. And this is a slab building, so there's no pier and beam, so we can't move the cat ball. So I was like, that was really cool. And it was one of 2. So I was like, yeah, if we're moving around, setting it off, they both would be going. And I got an EVP in a cadence that was wild because it was a male voice, and I was there with two ladies at the time. And if I had said what was said, you would see in the video a different turnout. And what I mean by that is, in the middle of a cadence, we hear pause it, but the cadence keeps playing. And I was like, did I say pause it? And I sent it to the two ladies that were with me, and they heard it, and they were like, Michael, if you had said paused it, we would have paused it. There's no way we heard this. This is a Class A EVP. That is clear, precise, and I wish we had heard that, because I wonder what else they had to say. And I was like, I know.
I love EVPs. Have you had very many other ones that you could talk about?
Well, I did have a lady say hello to me in one of the rooms of the military base, because we were investigating the PX building, which is like a store. And so it was divided up, and a friend of mine, Shauna Anderson, she runs, well, at the time she ran Texas Scaregrounds, which is a haunted house attraction there as well. So the walls were left up for the haunted house year round. So we would just maneuver around and investigate around it. And in a room right next to where a lot of people would come to me and say, I'm having conversations with a ghost in this room. I was like, I found it ironic that the lady approaches me on the other side of the wall of that room. And I was like, wow. And I had no idea that she had said hello. Or I think it was either hello or hi.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, I just pan on, and then I meet up with the other ladies coming through. And I was like, I wonder if it was one of the ladies. And so I sent it to them, and they all laughed at me, and they said, Michael, why would we say hi to you in a room when we've already know we're walking around and investigating? I was like, you got a good point. So that was clearly another Class A EVP. And that's the only place I've investigated where I've gotten multiple EVPs, and they're different people.
Yeah, that's
and
fun.
This place has a mystery to it that, unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep investigating the mystery. But I was with a team the next day from when I investigated with the two ladies and we had the cadence EVP. The next night, I'm with another team there, and it's their first time there. And this couple, first time investigating with this team from Chicago, comes up to me and says, "You've been here a lot, right?" I said, "Yes, I know this place very well." And they go, "So what is this doll laugh every 15 minutes? And I go, "I beg your pardon?" And they go, "There's a laugh every 15 minutes. And I go, "I have never heard a laugh. I don't know what you're talking about, in full honesty." So we sit there, and they go, "Well, it's due to hit in a couple minutes. You want to just stay here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm very curious. What are you talking about?" Sure enough, all of a sudden it sounds like a doll. You pulled the string, and it's laughing, like doing a little laugh. And I'm like, where is this coming from? So I gathered up a lot of the team that was there that night. And funny enough, we spent almost an hour and a half to 2 hours trying to figure out in one room where this sound was coming from. It was bouncing around.
Yeah, that is weird, right?
And so it was getting frustrating to us because we would line up and go, we're all going to hear it from the same place. Nope. Someone hear it from behind, someone hear it from above, someone hear it from in front. Then we thought, let's do the corners. We got to be able to isolate it that way. We do the corners. Nope. Somebody hears it over here, somebody hears it over there. It's like, this is really getting frustrating. So we end up calling for the night. Then I come back with 2 other investigators and a friend of mine that works security for the haunted house there, and she's interested somewhat in the paranormal. And we had told her about the laugh, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So she came with us, and we're waiting and waiting, and all of a sudden we hear the doll again. And I'm like, this is so cool. I've never had 2 different days the same phenomena. So I was like, oh, I'm on cloud 9 going, okay, we get to hunt this thing again. And, we're going to find out what's going on. Another 2 hours goes by, still no answer. And we come to find out, Shauna says, well, there is a doll that makes that sound, but it has to have batteries put in. And there are no batteries in it. So it was like we had an answer as to what was doing it, but we couldn't answer how it was doing it.
That's interesting. I love that.
Yeah, so it was like that became our quest for a while, is who is doing this laugh? And we shared it with Shauna, and Shauna one day honestly was like, she messages me and she goes, Michael, you know that sound that you were hearing in the kids' doll room? I said, yeah. I heard it in a different room. And I was like, what? So whatever it was has now moved to another section of the building.
No.
So I was like, now this is getting really interesting.
Yeah, I've heard of different cases with the music box being heard in different areas like that, really weird, spooky stuff. So yeah, we're coming up now on the 27-minute mark before the 30. Do you want to give a little shout out before we get up to the 30-minute mark about all your socials and all your website? Because we really haven't delved into all that.
Sure. So let me see. As you mentioned, my website is Michael Kopf, Paranormal Investigator and Podcaster.com. And funny story about that is I thought I was reserving space to create a website. So I thought I'll just call it what I am. Then I found out that was going to be my site address now. And I was like, oops. Well, I'm keeping it. So I advertised in there the shows, what my podcast shows are about, where you can see them. All the links to the shows are there. And I have published on a Facebook newsletter a few articles. So those articles are also on my website.
Yeah,
so
you
my
have
website,
the energy that surrounds us, paranormal verses, and I see you do a lot of StreamYarding, and there's a whole slew of different channels on YouTube and Rumble, eTalk, you name it.
So YouTube, Rumble, and eTalk, I have channel for each of my podcast shows that I'm a part of. And so I am the host and owner of The Energy That Surrounds Us, which is Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock Central Time.
Folks, check him out. We'll be right back with Michael Kopf. Hello and welcome back again with Michael Kopf from Texas, United States. Hi, Michael. I do believe
Hello.
we were, yeah, hi, talking about, we had a little intermission there. I believe we were talking about your website and all the different areas that you work. There's a lot of different things that you do. Tell us about it.
Yes, and so I was mentioning that so I do podcasting, and so three of the shows I'm involved in, I was discussing was on Tuesday nights, The Energy That Surrounds Us is a show that I host and own, and you can find that on YouTube, Rumble, and eTalk and Spotify. And this show is primarily my delving into the paranormal and the fringe paranormal, meaning topics like cryptids, stargates, portals, dimensional beings, and UFOs. All the stuff that some paranormal investigators will be like, I'm not so sure about. I even had a guest on about the Alaska Triangle. So I try to cover a lot of things that are really interesting with that show in the paranormal field. And on Wednesdays, for 3 episodes a month, with it in season 2, I have a series that delves into esoterics and hidden knowledge and the disclosure movement. And on that show, I am on YouTube, Rumble, and eTalk, and Spotify as well. And we talk about topics such as secret space program or UFOs. Are they ours or are they alien beings? And in talking about alien beings, is which alien race, different star races, portals, stargates. And so that one, I try to delve more into the unknown. And so I have more fun with these two shows going into a variety of topics that are somewhat conspiracy as well. And Thursdays with season 2, I am the host with Kel Ridley of Paranormal Versus. And in season 2, we decided to take and do 3 episodes a month for Paranormal Versus as well. And we added a third host, Matt J.B. Atkinson. And Paranormal Versus can be found on YouTube, Rumble, and eTalk, and Spotify. And Paranormal Versus is a paranormal show that deals with conspiracy topics as well. And we delve into all types of paranormal topics like sleep paralysis, UFOs, cryptids, or different locations around, and what experiences people have had, or people who make paranormal equipment, promoting them. And so the unique thing and why it's called Paranormal Versus is Kel Ridley and Matt Atkinson are in England, UK, and I'm in Texas, USA. So we sometimes will, depending on our guest, compare the US versus the UK in investigating techniques or topics or language, and it's a lot of fun comparing the two. So those are my 3 shows that you can tune in and watch on YouTube, Spotify, eTalk.tv, and Rumble.
Yeah, so you do a lot of your stuff live with video. That's great.
I actually prefer the live because coming from the paranormal investigator, I know in watching a lot of paranormal shows and everything, everyone kind of has a misnomer about paranormal investigators saying, oh, they fake this or that. And I personally don't fake anything. And so a way to show that is I was like, my shows are live. So if I make a mistake or if I goof up something, it's out there for everyone. I could edit it out, but I was like, where's the fun in that?
I'm the same
So
way with my show. I don't like to edit it. I just go in the raw, we're coughing and cats meowing and dogs barking. I leave it all in there.
I agree. It kind of lends a little bit more authenticity to it. And I try to do my shows like a conversation. And talking about paranormal shows, before the break, I was about to share something from the military base if you would like me
Yeah,
to.
let's go back to that. You had something that you wanted to talk about, and I love anything military. Let's have at it.
So, if any of your viewers, or I don't know why I said viewers because this is a radio show, so any of your listeners,
Well,
see,
well,
this is what I'm talking about.
I always like to tell my listeners, quote unquote, that they can watch for free on the Spotify app on their TV because you can actually put up your feet and put it on your TV and listen that
Oh,
way.
there you go. But so if they are a fan of Destination Fear,
Oh, I love that.
when that was the show,
Mm-hmm.
they were in Mineral Wells and went to the Nazareth Hospital, which I've investigated quite a few times. And the doll that has been dubbed the Chelsea doll for Chelsea Layden, where if you remember in the episode, there was like a black mass that came out of it.
Oh, yes,
That
yes.
that doll resides currently at Fort Walters Military Base
Oh.
in the PX building. So you can investigate and meet Chelsea. And I have had quite a few run ins with her.
What happened?
Well, on one occasion, I was with a friend and he was asking questions of her, and I started asking questions, and all of a sudden my arm started hurting, and I was like, Chelsea, do you not like me here? And she goes, nope. And I said, are you messing with my arm to get me to leave? And she said, yes. And I was like, could have just asked. So I will let you go. And walked away and then came back later. And every once in a while she'll be chatty and sometimes she'll just play with the equipment.
So, how did she end up over there? Who moved her over there? Do you know any backstory on that?
So the doll was, I believe, a part of a twin set. So we don't know what happened to the other doll, but this one was given to Shauna as for display in the doll room of her haunted house attraction and was gifted to her. And so she, proudly displays her, and we all thought nothing really of it until we, noticed on Destination Fear, that show, when they aired the episode that happened, that we were like, we should take a closer look at that. And when the Nazareth closed, they moved the haunted house to Fort Walters. And so they then allowed paranormal investigators to come in and investigate the building. And so while we're in haunted house mode, Chelsea is put behind glass in a museum. room and in the bank building to where it's like an oddities museum where a lot of macabre and weird things are on display and some old things are on display and people can look at, and you can't touch Chelsea, but you can like see her, and so she's still on display. But I do know from talking with her, she does prefer to be out free, not behind glass.
Yeah, I remember in Destination Fear, that doll was over on a wall, and somebody had a chair up on the wall. That to me was a bit disturbing, having that chair up on the wall like that.
Right.
But yeah, moving
And
along, tell us more.
and a fun fact was all of us that investigate at the Nazareth when that episode aired, we all were like talking to each other, and we were like, I can't believe the raccoon got to make an appearance on the show and we didn't. And we all were like laughing about it because there were times where we would hear like stuff and we would be like, oh, I think we got a spirit. And then we'd find out, oh, there's a raccoon in the building. So we'd have to figure out, okay, is it the raccoon or is it really spirit? And I had to say for me, most of the time was spirit. And one interesting experience I'll share with you in the hospital building was, well, actually, I'll share two with you. One is when I was giving a tour with Mustafa and a couple of others. We were walking along the floor of one of the main levels, and they always told me about this spirit that would growl, and I was like, I've never heard anything growl, so that's fine. So I go in the basement level where the haunted house runs, and I'm walking, and I approach this werewolf animatronic, and it's off, and I take 2 steps past it, and I hear this growl, and I turn around, the werewolf is still off, not moved. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go upstairs, check in with everybody else, and see what's going on. And I was like, yep, I heard the growl, and I was like, you don't want me down here? That's fine. I will go upstairs and check out the rest of the building.
Yeah, that stuff can get kind of spooky. Was that thing unplugged, by the way?
It was.
That's even
And,
more spookier.
well, it wasn't him. He didn't growl. That
Oh.
was the thing. It was like the growl came from in front of me,
Mm.
not behind me, and I had to walk past him. And that's not even the eeriest part. I'll share with you the eeriest moment that we, for me, at the building was I was investigating with my friend Chad, who is part of Ghost Geeks, and his team was there, and our team was collaborating, and we were investigating the building. And all of a sudden, he hears my name like a computer. What, you know how those computer devices talk?
Yes, digitally.
He goes, yeah, he goes, I just heard your name digitally. And I was like, my name? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, really? And so then we go, and we're just about to turn the corner, and a door slams. And we're like, what? And we walk in, and he's like, I was like, I'm getting a feeling of something medical. And he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, so we're investigating. And in the very next room, there's an area where another investigator had investigated, and he said, don't go in this area, all the way, because there's a bad spirit there. So we're like, okay. Well, there's a desk. On the desk is a medical book. And we're like, no way. So we're like, this is creepy. So we walked back into the room where he heard my voice, and there's a broken window. And we're on, I believe it was the 5th floor, counting the basement level. And so there could be a little bit of airflow coming in from outside. And the reason I say this is we watched as a upper cabinet door on the left side of 2 upper cabinets open all the way and then start to close. Then it would open again. Then it would close itself, start to open. And then we look down and there's a book open. And the page would start to curl up like it's going to flip, but then go back down. And then 2 pages would lift up and go back down. And at one point, 3 pages lifted up and then went right back down. And I'm like, and I'm filming this on a live, and I'm like, I can't believe this cabinet door is doing this, and the book is doing that. And I pan over, and the cabinet on the right has not moved.
That was spooky. Did you go and look and see what was on the book?
I think it was a medical book, but I don't know what exactly. Like, it looked like probably like a notebook, like somebody might have for notes of like what medicines might be for what.
Okay. Somebody was doing some late night work in their book, huh?
Right, and what's interesting
but the
is
cupboards opening and closing. That's weird, right?
Yeah,
The
it
cabinet
is,
door.
and so we're on the right side of when you come up the stairs, and if you turn left, it's the surgery wing.
Okay.
Where they did surgeries, and so we were like, yeah, that floor was always creepy to everybody that investigated there. Everybody would be like, oh,
see,
man.
that kind of stuff don't scare me because I'm an OR nurse. So, and I mean, I get it because nobody knows what goes on in there, but I do. I mean, I've been an OR nurse for a long time, and those areas don't scare me. And I guess people think about those areas as scary because maybe some people passed there. Sure, maybe they have, but I find the morgue scarier than the OR.
Well, we had a lot of shadow beings in the 2 rooms that were related to the surgical wing. That's why everybody would get creeped out. And if you watch, I think it's called Fight Club.
Yes.
So my friend Kellen actually has on that episode catching one of the shadow beings on the surgical side of the hospital on one of the episodes. So we were like, way to go, dude. So cool that you're on the you got your stuff up on the show. And it was like, yeah, I was like, we're watching it going, yeah, there's no way you could say that that's someone walking by. It is a total spirit unto itself.
Yeah, those shadow people can be really dark, right? And you can really see them.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool that you got it up on the Freight Club episode.
Yeah, shout out to Kellen of Lone Star Paranormal for getting that up.
Yeah, you've been with a lot of different groups I see in your bio.
I have. I've been really fortunate I like to collaborate and investigate with different teams to get different ideas and meet a lot of interesting people. And one of the interesting people that I've met recently that I haven't had a chance to collaborate totally with, and we're talking about it, doing it, and so maybe coming up on the show. I don't know. I have to work some things out, but I will share that the person I'm talking about is Crossroads Meets the Ocean Rose. She has her own YouTube channel, and it's Crossroads Meets the Ocean 2323, and she does readings, and she is a phenomenal reader, and so we have been talking about we are wanting to investigate some locations and see what we get collaborating. So we both have more of a metaphysical side to us, and so we're wanting to bring that and see how the paranormal will react to the metaphysical.
Yeah, I love it when you bring mediums and metaphysical people to an investigation because it gives a whole different perspective. And you were talking about, about some of the different folks that you've been at with, and I looked at one of their names and I love the name Southern Fried Spirits Paranormal. It sounds delicious.
So, funny story about that group was when we went to a Para-Unity event, and her name is Carla Norris. She's the co-founder, and we were great friends. We met investigating, and I didn't know she had her own team at the time, and so we would meet up and investigate, go on investigations ourselves and do little mini investigations and go check out some things, and we started a podcast together. She was my original co-host on exploring our secret past and rebranding it to the energy that surrounds us. And so she will be on the first half of season 1, and she decided mid-season that she wanted to go and do her own show. And I totally said that's cool and wish her the best. And I check out her show every once in a while. I believe her YouTube channel is the Unseen Realms on YouTube. I believe that's what it's called.
Okay, big shout out to Carla Norris there.
Yeah, and so Carla and I, we still talk about investigating here and there, and we go on adventures, and like we investigated the city of Jefferson, Texas, a couple of times, and so yeah, it's I've been really blessed to have amazing co-hosts helps me out, and right now I'm hosting on my own, and I may or may not take on a co-host. And my deal right now is with the energy that surrounds us. If I bring on another co-host, it would be temporary to help them get comfortable behind the screen and comfortable running their own show, and in the hopes that they would turn around and create a show of their own and keep this paranormal community growing.
I love that you talk about that word, the paranormal community, because I really do feel it is a community, and I really like the networking of it with all the different countries. The more countries, the merrier. So yeah, let's keep it going with that unity. And is there anything more that you want to add, or any other links or things, folks? He's got a lot of different shows. You definitely want to check him out and tune into him.
So the only thing I have that's not linked on my link tree, so if you honestly want to find me, Linktree is the best way. It's got all my links to all my social media, and that is on I have a Rumble channel called Michael Kopf's Adventures, and it's where I post interviews and I post videos that I created of topics that interested me before I became a podcaster and used the show. And I just started on that channel. It's only on the Rumble channel, Michael Kopf's Adventures.
And you want to spell your name for the people listening?
So my name is Michaelko, P as in Paul, F as in Frank.
There you go. So, folks, check it out.
And I can tell you the Rumble channel, that this mini-series that I'm just starting, it's called Insights into the Mind of Michael Kopf. It is on Rumble, and the channel is rumble.com/c/Michael Kopf. And that'll take you right to it. And what this mini-series is I'm sure you get this when you have shows where somebody will bring up a topic and you're like, that topic is really interesting. So I will go and I'll say, okay, like, example is I just put out my third video and it's about the Knights of the Round Table. And before you go, yeah, there's a lot of videos on the Knights of the Round Table, my insight is I say, so the Knights of the Round Table, I heard from listening to Laura Eisenhower giving a talk. She briefly glazed over and said, yeah, the Knights of the Round Table are associated with the Zodiac. So I was like, huh. So I looked it up, found it, and posted and made in the video which knights were Zodiac knights, which knights were just the Knights of the Round Table, and I proposed a theory of, well, what else is attached to the Zodiac? Well, stars. Well, what do we know about stars now in today's terms? Well, there are star nations. So could it be that these Knights of the Round Tables might have been hybrids of half star being half human, and that's why they're related to the Zodiac? And so I took the Zodiac, said, well, here's their signs, the elemental signs, and then I said, here's the star races, here's their signs, and said, so here you can map out these knights are potentially these races. And that's why they're the knights that most people will stand up and say, yes, they redefined chivalry. Yes, they redefined what it meant to be a knight. Why? Because they were different. They couldn't be corrupted, so to speak, because of this or that.
So it's interesting you mentioned knights. Michael, we're getting close to a Renaissance festival here in Newfoundland and Labrador that Darren Han hosts. So yeah, we're coming up on the 29 minutes to the 30 minutes. So again, if y'all want to find Michael Kopf and his link tree, I have that posted on the Paranormal NL, and I'll also put his link tree on the description in Spotify. So check him out. He's got a lot of cool episodes, and most of them are live, and they're great to watch. So thanks, Michael, for being on, and say hello to all my friends down in Texas for me. I miss everybody.
I surely will, and thank you for having me on.
And thank you for being on. We really appreciate it.